Right, welcome everyone. I'm going to actually share my screen and thank you everyone. If you don't mind, we're going to be just quickly share my one screen over here. There we go. Right. And what I'm having here is my Padlet isn't coming up as one of my options to share. So, okay. Right, let me just try here. All right, everyone. Hopefully you can see this. Are you? Wonderful. Right, everybody, welcome. And thank you for giving of your time on a Friday afternoon, especially after such a busy week, after 6 months of teaching online, hybrid, blended, and every other permutation in between. And we did have a pre-launch to the SAGTA downloader, but I think it's fitting now that so many people have given such valuable feedback that we actually have our official launch. So this is welcome to the SAGTA downloader official launch. And just a little bit of etiquette here. As Inika, I'm guided by Inika, but if everybody now could please keep their mics and videos off. So if you could please just turn your mics and videos off, and please all open up the chat, because all questions will be in the chat, including a very important series of links that Inika is going to be posting to the chat. So if you could please just have the chat open in the side and just keep typing all your questions in there. And also, firstly, I want to just thank you from SAGTA's side for all the valuable feedback that we've been getting for this. And you'll see that there's some changes. And of course, all these changes do involve funds. So please appreciate that these funds come from your subs. Talking of which, please, the downloader will remain free until the end of November. Thereafterwards, it's for SAGTA members only. So please go and approach your bursar, tap dance in front of them. Just say I learned from dear Kathy Caselli. You just look them in the eye and say that it's imperative that you have access to the map downloader. So just the feedback form is will look like this in the chat. So if you could please fill that in, and we're encouraging everybody to do that because it acts as registration. So if you, and for attending, I'm sure we can soon get permission that you can get half a CPD point for attending, especially on a Friday afternoon. So please, can you complete this feedback form at the very end of the session? And there's also a prize, and that's going to be a QGIS cartography course that Brandon will be talking about later on after he gives his presentation. So where you find the map downloader is on the SAGTA website. So you go to sagta.org.za. You can always watch a how it works video, but you click on the map downloader and you'll see it's got a new look. Now, for the new look, I had to chuckle. COVID is marvelous. One of the take-homes is we've all upskilled and become extremely tech-savvy just by default. But you need to click, there will be two options, and Admire is going to be talking to that. So you need to either click on the orthophoto map downloader or the topographic map downloader. Now, to check if something is to scale, I had a discussion with someone here. What you need to do is check that 1 centimeter rep for a 1 to 50,000 scale map. Once you print out your end product, please just take your trusty ruler. Now, they're rulers and they're rulers, and a good ruler, all right? So because there are changes, and you'll notice that we picked it up during marking. There are quite a few errors in some cheap products that have come out of ruler production lines. But if you would just test that 1 centimeter represents 500 meters. And if not, Brandon is going to be giving you a few hints on how you can assure that the map that you print is to scale. I just want to share some research that I've been doing, because I hand in my research next Tuesday. Panic, and I actually need 2 weeks to complete, but I'll only have a weekend in which to do it. But I want to draw your attention to the small percentage. Many of you filled in the survey for me, and thank you so much. But I had 112 participants complete this, and less than 4% actually invite GIS professionals to come and speak to their classes. And I would like to encourage you, please. One of the other hats that I wear is I'm also on the GIS National Council. My portfolio is education, and we've got quite a few hundred very eager GIS professionals that are looking forward to giving back. And it makes sense that they encourage our learners, pupils, students to get involved in geosciences as a career. And they are very willing. And one of the questions on the feedback form you will find is, would you be interested in connecting up with GIS professionals? And in fact, we've got Yanusha Singh, who's the chair, new incoming chair for GISA, who I think is in the room. And I just want to say, absolutely marvelous that we've got a woman in geoscience, which I always have to celebrate. And please, I think there's nothing like hearing learners getting guest speakers in, and this can also be arranged remotely as well. So you can, if you are interested, please just leave a note on the feedback form. Now, what I'm going to do now is just quickly introduce our two guests for today, Admire Nyakudya and Brandon Lowe, both of which Admire I had the privilege of, he was a colleague at AfriSpatial and then Cartosa for 2.5 years. He's worked with my husband for the last 10 years, has a postgrad degree in remote sensing, and is a GIS specialist. And in fact, the product that he's going to be going through with all the new functionality is thanks to Admire. And also the funding, thank you Cartosa, Geography Gauteng, and Cartosa, and SAGTA, absolutely. And then of course, Brandon Lowe, I've known for over 25 years with IB assessment, and has been a colleague of mine in the last 5 years. And we've been really trying to test how you can use GIS to teach the curriculum. And he's going to be talking to that. So thank you and welcome everybody. And over to you, Admire. I'm going to stop sharing now.
Personal.
Oh, thanks very much, Bridget.
Oh, what the hell now? Someone else has started talking.
Let me share my screen. Let's see. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Can you all see my screen? I assume so. Okay. All right. I'll start now. So what we have done is, with the new map downloader, is we have changed it a bit from the old one that we had before. So what we have done mainly is we have basically split up the printing template, so that when you navigate back to the site, you can basically identify which template you want to play around with and which one you want to print. So I'm just gonna give a brief walk down through of all the icons that are available and how you interact with the icons, so that you can get a nice, pleasant user experience on the site itself. So when you get to the landing page here, you get 2 maps. So you can basically choose which map you want to load. So I'm going to start by loading the topographic map layout. So basically, when it loads, it takes a bit of time to load, especially it all depends on the load of the system itself, but it's quite quick in most cases. So once you are in the system here, right, you can basically see that this is, so the data that is available here for this 1 in 50 topo sheet map sheet, it's basically a scanned sheet, topo sheet, that comes from NGI. So someone went in and gathered all the individual index files for the topo sheets, and then scanned them and generated a seamless layer. So this seamless layer is being saved by by OpenStreet. So we don't have control with the where it's coming from. We just get it as it is. So that's why you find sometimes when you're on the site, if you click on print and you print them, it might take a bit of time because it actually has to go and fetch the image itself, and then it actually prints and renders it for you on your system. So once you are here on the map page, so there are a couple of ways that you can interact with the system, and one of the most important ways is the ability to search. So it defaults the default page, the landing page, it defaults to the center of the country somewhere around Bloemfontein. So if you wanted to zoom into a different space within within South Africa, so you would actually have to come in, and so I'm going to show you the three ways that you can search. One is if you look on the top bar on the nav bar, there is a search icon that's there. So this gives you a free word key search. So you can basically type the place that you want to search. Like for instance, I can say Cape Town. And then I click search. Then it brings up a bunch of places within Cape Town. So if I click on that place within Cape Town, and then it zooms to the extent of that particular location, and then it fetches that image in the background. So that's why I find sometimes it might take a bit of time to render the image itself when you navigate to that location that you want. So that's one way that you can search for a particular location. Another way is as well, if you look in the bottom here, there is an overview map that's available. So with this overview map, it serves you two purposes, the overview map. One is just to give you like an identifier to say in respect to this location that I'm viewing in my in my main map, where am I with respect to South Africa? And then the second one, it also gives you the ability to actually use it as a searching tool. So if I didn't know like the name of the area, but I basically know the geography of the area, I could basically come up and see inside that map view, there is a little icon, that blue thing. If you just pan around with that, it actually allows you to navigate between different places, right? So those are two ways. And then the last one is there's when you land into the landing page here, there is that icon that says locating. So you can see here, there is everywhere on the map, there is an index box that's actually labeled with the index number. So this is the 1 in 50 index that's provided by NGI. So you can also use that to actually filter to say, I want to search for an index sheet, like I want to search for 28. So it does a keyword search as well. If you just enter in the first 2 digits, and then it allows you it auto completes, and then you can basically scroll down and navigate and see which place it is. So now I can click on that, and then once I select my location, it immediately zooms to that extent of that location, and you can see that index file that that index field that I've selected, it actually is highlighted in in yellow. So those are 3 ways that you can actually search. So another nice thing is by default, when you load in a different, if you are in the topographic map layout, it defaults to this base map. You can also, if you go in on the side, on the left sidebar, you can see there's a layers tab there, right? So with this layers tab, there are a bunch of maps layouts that are loaded inside here. So there's 150 index, which is by default. You can toggle this off as well and show the alternative one, the 1 in 10K. So the 1 in 10K is just a bit smaller grids. So you can actually navigate and see with respect to your grid cells to say at which location you are. And you can basically, it actually helps you to navigate and see which item do I want to be printing, right? So that's the index, the map guides, the index sheets that we have there. So besides that, you can also, there's an option that allows you to choose the different map backgrounds that are there. So if it's for topographic maps, it defaults to the topographic. For orthophoto, it also defaults to the NGI orthophoto. So, but it does not mean that just because you are viewing the topographic map, you can't view the orthophoto. You can also basically toggle between them and see what area you are and what it looks like, the topography for the area that you are in. And but just to keep in mind that even if you change the base map there, once you print, if you are in the topographic map layout, it will default to printing using the base map. That's the topographic base map. Yeah. Right. So that's the layers that you have there. And then the next icon there is the info button that basically just gives you like a little metadata in terms of the description of what the site does, and if you have got any questions, who you can contact, and also it gives you a link, a reference link to the SAGTA website, the main website. And then the locating one is, I've already talked about that locating one. And then I'm just going to skip the printing for now and then just look at the other one, and I'll talk about the printing as last. And then there are also like other items that you can do besides just printing maps here. Is you can also use the measure tools that are available. So once you click on the measure tool there, it gives you like a little icon, and you can click on that icon, and then you can basically draw in your shape that you want, and then you can basically choose what kind of measurement you want to do. Do you want to do an area measurement, or do you want to do a perimeter? So these are the different kind of measurements that you have. So in the future, we are going to allow people to create annotations, and then those annotations you actually save them as layers, and then you can, when you print, you can also print with those little annotations that probably you can annotate to create a polygon, and your polygon, you measure that polygon and you print. That's in the roadmap. But for now, it's just you can use that to measurements on the system itself, right? And then there is also the tooltip icon. So the tooltip icon basically allows you to query an index file to say at this location, if my index file is not loaded, I could basically say at this location, what is the index at this location? And then it pops up on the left side there at the top. It gives you that lookup to say what is the index file at that location, right? So, and then on the far right, there's all those map navigation tools that you can basically use as well, besides using those search buttons that I talked about. Is you can also zoom in like the normal zoom in, like using you drag a rectangle, it creates a bounding box, and then it zooms into that specific location that you want. And then after that, you can also drag your map to a certain extent, and then play around with them, the map navigations, like the same way that you could find on platforms like Google Maps. So that's how you would basically navigate onto the map downloader itself, right? So then we come now to the most important thing is the printing capabilities for the map downloader itself, right? So if you click on the print icon here, right? So the print icon, what it does is basically defaults to printing the extent that's visible on your map, right? So you can see it actually creates a little red box that actually shows you that if you were to print at this location, you would only be printing this area that is specified by that red rectangle, right? So then now you have the ability now to choose between the preloaded templates that are there. So with the templates that are there now, you can see we only have topographic map templates here. So we have got the different sizes, A3 and A4. So you can choose between the different options that are there. So for instance, if I were to choose the A4 landscape here, right? Then the next thing that I would want to choose is I would basically want to choose to say at what scale do I want to be printing this, right? So if I choose, I want to be printing this at 1 in 50,000, and then to ask me as well, at what resolution do I want to be printing this? So if I am printing at 100, and then I would choose 100. So just as a note, you should just note that if you are printing at higher resolutions and your area is quite big, sometimes it might give problems with the system itself in terms of handling that. So it's just generally encouraged to use like these lower DPIs like 200 or 100, and then you use that to print. And then next thing is you enter your title here. Is if you don't put in anything here, it will print with saying enter map title. It will assume that that enter map title is actually your title. So what you need to do is you actually physically type in something, like you can say, just because now you know it's 2328 BC, you can basically say 2823 BC, and then you can write some extra text that you want to write if you feel like you need to write some extra text. And then on the format here, you can choose the different formats that are there, PNG or SVG or PDF. I always like to do it in PDF because you can always make edits in if you've got Adobe Professional or whatever it is, then you can print. Right. So once the printing starts, it takes you like to a blank screen, and then it renders in the background. It takes a bit of time because it actually has to do the physical work in terms of fetching the tiles from OpenStreetMap. Then once it's done, you can see on your indicator here that it actually has finished printing, and then you can navigate to your map layout, right? So I've got ones that I've already pre-loaded here, pre-printed, right? So this is one I've already printed here. So there are a couple of things that we've already changed. So with the new QGIS version that came up, we now have a nicer, I'm just going to increase the, right, so yeah. Right, so now what we've done is our scale bar, right? Since QGIS 3.14, they've added an option to generate a scale bar that looks identical to the one that is provided by the NGI, right? And then you've got the default nice things, the logos, the QGIS logo, just to emphasize that it was generated in QGIS. And then on the second page, you have the map legends that actually shows you, so that you can use that as a reference for features that are visible within this map extent, right? So another thing is that we've done is the graticues here is we have added in the cardinality so that you can see at each grid interval, you can see the cardinality for all that. So you can see this is east, then the south, and then all the features that are available there, you can cross-reference obviously to the map layout there. And so in terms of this layout here, there are a couple of things that we are working on to improve as well. We are going to be adding in the ability for having alphanumeric grid labels here. So in the previous version we had them, but there was one problem with them because the axis ordering was starting at the bottom instead of starting at the top. So you would have A1 at this cell. So we actually removed it so that we can figure out the logic to fixing it so that it starts at the top, right? So that's your topographic map layout, right? And then you can basically change the scale. So another nice thing that we did is, for now, you can see this example that this map layout, right? So you can see our grid intervals here, right? So at this scale, our grid intervals looks like this. So we also added the ability for the grid intervals to be dynamic, so that if you print at a different scale range, it will show you the minimum number of grid intervals so that your map does not look cluttered with all the grid intervals that are visible within that cell, right? So that's how you interact with the map downloader and basically how you print in the context of the topographic map layout, right? So the same thing that we've done here is also applies to the orthophotos. So if I just navigate back to my landing page, now I can choose the orthophoto layout, right? Right, so the way that the orthophoto layouts, the way that we have designed them to be printing for now is we have got in the NGI supplies us with 5-meter contours, and also it supplies us with 20-meter contours, right? So we are overlaying the 5-meter and 20-meter contours so that we can print based on if an area has got 5-meter contours, we print the 5-meter contours at 1 in 10,000 scale, right? So I've got this example of a diagram here that just basically, this just shows that the 5-meter contours that are produced by NGI, they do not cover the whole country. So there are certain portions of the country that are not yet available for the 5-meter contours, right? So when you print your orthophotos here, so you are going to notice that in some areas, if you are lucky, you are going to be able to print layouts that have got 5-meter contours, right? But in some instances, if you don't get that 5-meter contours, you would get the 20-meter contours that are available. So the same navigation skills that we had is that also applies to the orthophotos, right? And then you can also just basically print and choose your templates. After choosing your templates, you can generate your print. Once your print has been generated, you can see, right, I'm just gonna increase the, right there. So that's your print there with all those contours from there, right? So another thing as well that we're going to be working on in another version is to just correct the labeling of the contours so that they always face uphill, right? So that's one thing that we're also working on. So in the next iteration that we do, we're going to fix that out. And one thing that was also mentioned recently was just to change the color for these contours so that they become much more discernible and visible on the map layouts itself. Right. So I think that's all that I had to cover.
Thanks, Maya. There will be questions at the end for you, but just from the community of teachers, we are so grateful because this has helped us, even though this was developed pre-COVID. I know there were many of us that wouldn't have been able to teach without this because the NGI offices were closed for a while. And just a correction that there's the IEB examiners do not use this to produce paper 2 maps. This is a teacher tool. We actually do the core cartography with QGIS. Thanks, everyone. Over to Brandon.
Okay.
Good. So I'll share my screen. Right, so hopefully you can see my screen now. I want to just pick up from where Admire left off. Hopefully, can you see my screen? Is it okay? All okay?
Yes, it's okay.
Good, great. So if we pick up from where Admire left off, what I want to look at is I want to look at the product that you see at the end and how you can use that product. So once you've done the map, so let's say, for example, we want to do the Dubai Trade Port area. And so what you would then do is you would select that area. Now, remember, in selecting the area, we don't actually have guidelines for where the lat long lines would be. So in choosing the square, it's a matter of a bit of a guess. You're in that block, but your end product might not have lines that are neatly on the edges. You know, it might not be all the way on the edges. And so, as Admire said, just to emphasize that point, before you print the map, you need to make sure that all of this is correct. Make sure that you're using the correct orientation. You might want a portrait or you want a landscape. Make sure if you're using the 1:50,000, use 1:50,000. Generally, what I found is at this scale and at the A4 size, 300 dpi is quite workable. You can use that quite easily, because when you're using a 100 dpi or a 200 dpi, you find that your resolution is not as crisp as what you would like. So the 300 dpi gives you a very nice functionality. And then obviously, then before you're ready to print, you would then type in your title. And as Admire said, you could do here, you've got the map code. And so you could put that in, and then you could type that in. So we could put in there 2931 CA, and then we can say this is the Dubai Trade Port, right? And then we print that. And once you've printed that, what will happen is this, that you will now get your map. I'm just going to just produce the map instead of doing it live. So there you have the map. Can you see there's your title very nicely put at the top? And so there you have your map. And notice, as it says here, you've got your scale in there, and you can always check that. If you put your ruler against that, you will see that that will be exactly 2 centimeters. And then all your information is there. So if you're doing it as a PDF, then it's fine. But now, important to remember is that when you want to print this document, when you're working with the printer, sometimes what the printer does, it doesn't print all the way to the edge of the page. And so what you need to be doing, you need to be checking the properties of your printer. And so you need to check more settings. And what you might have to do there is that you must make sure that when you print it, you must print it to actual size. Because then what happens is this, it will print it according to scale. When you print it to fit the page, what Adobe does, it shrinks the image slightly to account for the printer not going to the edge of the page. And so therefore your scale might be out by 1 or 2 millimeters. So if you want an accurate scale, make sure that when you print this topographic sheet as a PDF, make sure that you print it to fit the page. Now, once you have printed this map, the big question is what do you do with it? As Admire said, the other functionalities are going to come in with regard to the grid squares at the top, the alphanumeric grid. But you now might want to add things onto this map. So let's say, for example, you're looking at this map now, the Dubai Trade Port, and you want to add arrows, you want to add little circles, you want to identify places so that your learners then can use this in a test or assessment. So what you could do, you could use, if you have Adobe Acrobat Professional, you could use that. But obviously that's proprietary software. And so not everybody has access to that. What I found is, which is a very good software that we can use, is this one here. You're seeing my screen now. Yeah, I've got another one that I'm using here. I've got Office LibreOffice. Now, LibreOffice is an open source software, and it's got a whole suite of software within it. And the software that you would use for this particular purpose to edit a PDF would then be the LibreOffice Draw. And so what you would then do, you pull it in. Now, sometimes what happens is this, you'll see that I've taken off the information at the bottom here, because sometimes what happens is this information gets messed up. So don't worry too much, because when you click on it, can you see what happens? You can actually move it around. So if this disappears here, you can always add it on. You can always add a text box. So sometimes in working with LibreOffice, it might do some adjustments to your page, and you can just do the editing there. So that's what we want to look at now, is how can we use LibreOffice to add information on here. You will notice that LibreOffice has got a whole lot of tools on the side here. So let's say, for example, we wanted to fix this up. Let me just get this right here. And we wanted to add some information on, and maybe I wanted to highlight this area over here. So what I would then do is I'd go over to that tool, the ellipse tool. And if I want to get a perfect circle, you just hold your shift or your control key down, and you will draw the ellipse tool. So let me just make sure the ellipse tool is selected. Let me just get away from that. Yeah, there we go. You'll notice that once your tool is selected, your mouse becomes a crosshair, and then you can use that. Now, for some reason, LibreOffice works very differently in terms of, you know, what you would think that under normal circumstances, if you went there, you'd be able to change that color to have no color. But unfortunately, LibreOffice, that only gives you the option to make the color. So what you would then do is you would select it like this, right click it, and then you would go there where it says area. So let's just see where you just select it. And let me just move it over the place that we want it to be. And then you'll see that it says area. And so when you go to area, it will open up a box. And there you have the option color. You just remove the color and say no color. And there you go. And now I just made a clear box. And then what you can do with that box is when you click on it again, you go again to line at this time. See, it seems like it doesn't seem to be very intuitive. And then you change that line, and then you can make the thickness. I would say when I tested this, I saw that 0.5 centimeter would work, or 0.4 of a centimeter would work. And then can you see there you've got the line. So using LibreOffice is a very nice open source software option. You notice that sometimes it does move around, so don't worry, you'd have to actually just lock these layers because sometimes it does mess around with your document. But it's a very good open source software that you can use to fix your document up. So you just need to be very careful in working with the document to make sure that your map doesn't move around. Unfortunately, I think this one I found that's a bit troublesome, but at least it's an option that you can use, because then we don't have to use the proprietary software. We can use this software. And I think with playing around with it a bit, you'll be able to put information on the map, and then you can do that. So the same will be true if you wanted to put an arrow. If you wanted to put an arrow on the map, let me just select away from this, and I want to put an arrow on. And so then notice how it becomes a crosshair again, and I want to point to that over there. There's the arrow. And then again, what I would do is I would select that, the line, and then it will give me an option, and I can change the color of the line, and I can change the thickness or width. Let's make 0.3, slightly thicker, and then there's your arrow. And so then later on you can put in, if you wanted to put in a text box, you can put in a text box and it will add the text box in. Okay, so that's what you would do there. And so that's how you would use that functionality. So here's an option that you can use in terms of editing your PDF software, your PDF. Another option, remember, as we go back here to the map downloader, is instead of downloading it as a PDF, you can download it as an SVG. But now that requires a bit more of a power user, because then that's a scalable graphic. And that scalable graphic, you can pull into LibreOffice, or you can pull into another software, which is called Inkscape. But what I found with Inkscape is that's why I didn't demonstrate Inkscape, because Inkscape is very geeky. At this point in time, it's still quite challenging in terms of its use. I generally, when I use the proprietary software, I'm fortunate I have access to proprietary software. What I then use is I use Adobe Illustrator. And Adobe Illustrator is a very useful tool to actually edit your map. I find that much better. Or alternatively, if you do have access to Acrobat, it's very easy. You just use the edit function, use the comment function. And I think I demonstrated that when you look at how to use the map download on the SAGTA website. I've got a short demonstration on the video, if you look at the video, as to how you can use that. So that's the only challenge at the moment, that, how do you do that effectively? And so I think, unfortunately, when it comes to actually editing the PDF, in this case, when you're using open source software, it does become a challenge. And you'll just have to practice with it and play around with it. And that's how we learn, to use this effectively. But I think what we need to realize about all of this is that the map downloader is really a dashboard. And so as a dashboard, it's giving you basic functionality. There are many other things you would like to do on the map itself. And then I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, because I think that's all we need to show now. There are many other functionalities that you might want on the map. Now, to get those functionalities, what you'll then need is you need someone to actually manipulate the data. And that's where you will then use the desktop QGIS. And so in talking about that, what we want to talk about is there are a number of courses that we offer as SAGTA courses for desktop QGIS. And so we have an introductory course, and then you can fill that out. And we're going to look at that in greater detail, and we'll advertise that on the SAGTA site. And so when you do the desktop GIS, you'd be able to know how to use GIS for yourself. And then once you know how to use GIS for yourself, you'll be able to produce maps similar to what you get from the map downloader. Remember, the map downloader is just a convenient way. It's an introduction into using GIS. Now, what I've done here is I want to show you for a moment and talk to you what is the benefit of having doing things like the desktop GIS and how will it benefit you. Hopefully you can see my screen now here. Now, these are examples of what our learners have done, because what we've done is we've now taken GIS, we've brought it into the classroom, and what we're really trying to do is we're trying to teach geography through GIS. Now, in this example that I'm showing you here, this is a task that we gave our learners to look at Cristala Central Place.
Sorry, Brandon, we can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. I stopped sharing my screen. Sorry. Let me get back to the screen. Okay. Sorry. No. I've got the wrong sharing there. Let me just share it again. Sorry. Can you see my screen now? Is that off, Bridget? Is that all fine now?
Perfect. Thank you.
Right. So here you see an example of where we're using the desktop QGIS. And what we're doing here is we now, as I said, we're teaching GIS we're teaching geography through GIS. So in this example, we gave this to our grade 12 learners. They're looking at Cristala Central Place theory. So what we've done, obviously, we manipulated a bit to try and get an idea as to what Cristala would show, and do we see a pattern within Cristala's theory. So what they then did is we packaged data here that shows Gauteng as the province. Then we looked at, we created all the major towns. We see the major towns. And then we've got the major metropoles, Pretoria and Johannesburg. And then we created buffers around them. And then in terms of Cristala's theory, we then created the hexagon that comes as a result of that. And so what you're then doing here is you're teaching settlement geography. But in doing this task, what you're also teaching is you're also teaching GIS theory. Because remember, for them to do this, they need to make a buffer around the city. And now they begin to understand what a buffer is. So they're creating a huge buffer around the major metropoles, and then they create a buffer around the smaller towns. And so in doing that, then you are doing two things at once. You're demonstrating what the GIS theory is. They see how it works. And in this way, then what happens is this, they begin to understand there's deeper learning that's happening as they do this. And so this is one example. Another example is here where we,
Sorry, Brandon, if you could just go back, just to emphasize that this is a student's work and the evidence is how they've spelt metropole there. So this is, just so you know, this is an example of what they've produced. Thanks, Brandon.
Yes. There are the mistakes are left there. So these are genuine student tasks that they've done. Then the second one here is an example of what we did here is we gave our learners a task to look at interbasin transfer scheme. So what we then did is we gave them the data, and then after giving them the data, they had to produce maps. So this was part of a slide from a PowerPoint presentation. And so what they then did is they took data and they then produced this data as it is here. Some of the data they in fact even obtained from OpenStreetMap. And so they selected data from there. They selected data that I packaged together for them. And then they produced this map. So each learner then had to produce a map of a interbasin transfer scheme, had to provide the map, had to put in all the information, had to have the legend and all of that. So can you see then they're learning about styling, they're learning about scale, they're learning about all of those things in addition to actually doing the geomorphology that we're doing in class. So again, an example of teaching GIS, teaching geography through GIS. Another example is what we did with our grade 11s, is when we do fluvial processes, when you do bifurcation ratio, all of this can be done with GIS. So here we see the Vaal drainage basin. And then what happens is this, then we get the data. We look at all the perennial streams, for example. We didn't put in the non-perennial streams. And then what happens is this, I see he did put in some of the non-perennial streams. And then what happens is this, that now you put in the different orders. Now what happens here, in order for them to get the orders, the stream orders, the first order, the second order, the third order, all of this is a layer. All the rivers are a layer that we can get as data. They then would have to use the functionality in QGIS to sort this data. Now, in doing that, they're actually working with the attribute table. And so by doing this, what we're teaching them attributes, and we're teaching them how do you use the attribute table. So yet again, in doing this exercise, while they're doing the fluvial geomorphology, they're actually learning about GIS theory. What is an attribute? And what is the difference between a layer and an attribute? And they begin to see that the river layer has many attributes. And so by going into the attribute table, they can pull out, for example, information that they want. And so by doing that, then they can manipulate the attribute table to produce a map like this. And this again is a map that was produced by a learner. So by doing this, you then were able to enrich the subject. You know, now GIS doesn't become a challenge in the classroom. And we have found that there's exponential learning that happens with regard to the core syllabus material, but also in an understanding of how GIS is used in the classroom. And the way in which we work with this is we first of all start off by getting them to work in pairs and to work together. And then later on, once they get to know the functionality of QGIS, they then are able to do this work on their own and produce their own products. And so in that way, then you can see what happens. So just in summary, then I can say that really when we think about this, by you empowering yourself to use QGIS as the desktop, you are able then to transfer this knowledge over to your learners. But in addition to that, when you are doing tests, when you are setting tasks, you can produce maps like these instead of trying to go to Google Earth or trying to go to Google and trying to get images. You can make your own images. And you can then have these images set out because you can see here, look, these learners did this with the scale and everything all correct. They will learn about projections and how to project this information. So there's a lot of deep learning that is happening. And in this way, then we'll be able to carry across the whole concept of GIS much more effectively in the classroom. And so that's really what I wanted to mention to you this afternoon, is to show how we can use this effectively. And then you can use the skills that you build up by doing your GIS course. And you can get your learners to do this just after you have done the introductory course, because you'd have sufficient knowledge. And then what we will also do as part of the training is, you know, it's one thing to use GIS software, like for example, QGIS. Your biggest problem is the data. Now we will show you how to customize data. So for example, when I did something like this, I gave the learners just the data files. And then because they'd used GIS before, we had given them training on using GIS. So what they did before they did this task, this was also grade 11 task. The grade 11s actually started off in wetting their feet in doing this. And so we assisted them. And once they knew how to use the functionality in QGIS, now we're able to throw them in the deep end and say, here's some data. Use this data to generate a map that you will put into your presentation. And in this way then, because remember, these they could use even in research projects. So if you give them a research project, they can take data now and manipulate that data and produce beautiful diagrams like these instead of trying to copy things from the internet. And now it's true learning that is happening here because they're producing this data. And I think that the kind of training that they get there will certainly equip them to face the challenges of tertiary education. And so that's what we're trying to do here. And so we will then in the courses train you how to get data. It's not a lot of work. How to package data together. We'll show you how to do that and how to generate more data. And so in this way, then the subject becomes more dynamic. It becomes more exciting and interesting for you when you are using GIS in the classroom. And so really, it's not something to be scared of. It's something that you can do. It's workable. And I think if we all share together on SAGTA, we can then build up a huge database of information that can be shared across the whole spectrum of our professional practice. Fine, so that's all I have. And I think, Bridget, now we're going to open it to questions.
Yes. Thank you so much, Brandon. And I can tell you what your geography numbers. We start off with GIS with grade 8s and 9s. They just produce very simple maps. We start off at from South Africa and then go global. But if anyone has any questions, we've got 10 minutes. If you can just please put up your hand is there a hand, put up your hand option, or just unmute and ask. I'm just seeing if there are any questions in the chat. I don't see any questions there. Details on the course, Tabi. Oh, there we go. Sorry, yes.
Bridget, sorry, I was just asking me, it's Wayne here. How do you save the map once you've done it? so that you can come back to it at a later stage and say, add more stuff. If you working on it in an evening and the next evening you want to go back to the things you've done. So how do you save it, please?
Good question, Wayne. And in fact, we have that with the pupils because the boys never finish in one lesson.
Yeah.
You save your QGIS project. And then, of course, and in fact, by default with QGIS, the previous project comes up. So
how do you do that? Can you show us on the screen, please?
No, Wayne, you need to attend the course with QGIS.
Oh.
For 10 minutes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay, so this
Fine,
is...
and Wayne, if I may come in, Bridget, if I may come in.
Are you talking...
So
Sorry,
are you
Wayne,
talking about the LibreOffice or are you talking about the actual QGIS desktop?
I was just asking about the map. Once you've, you're going to give it, say you're setting a test and you're going to now, you're working on it and then one day and you're going to come back the next day. So you save it so you can come back and then set, you know, put all in, have all the information from previously and then add more and then you set your map work exam or whatever.
Yeah, that in LibreOffice, you can just save it. You know, it will just be the normal function as with any other software, save as or save the document.
Oh, is it? Okay. And
Yeah,
then I
so
see someone has
complete.
asked, I see someone has also asked how you do the magnetic declination on the map. Blurk, Van Blurk, I think.
Yeah, look, we're going to, Admire, maybe Admire can come in there. We're going to put that functionality onto the map downloader. You know,
so is it not there yet?
No, it's not there yet. Maybe
Okay,
Admire.
I was looking for it. I've been looking for it this year when I set the matric trials paper and I didn't know what to do. Yeah, so, okay, so it wasn't there. Thanks.
Wayne, it's all about funding. So please, more members, the more subs, because remember, SAGTA is a non-profit organization. And as soon as the subs actually provide more funds, so we can get more and more functionality. Okay. All of that involves quite a bit of quite some hardcore algorithms. It is there, and if you we can actually show you how to do it in a separate little webinar perhaps until that functionality is available. But that is that's then the realm where you need to start working with QGIS. So this, as Brandon said, is just a tool for you to quickly print out maps. And then all that other functionality, a lot of other people have asked the magnetic declination, thanks Heather. You scroll up in the chat, you'll see that Gavin has said that is definitely functionality that's coming up. Other coming up as soon as we've got some more funds. And if anyone's got some some fundraising ideas, please, because we all volunteers here for SAGTA. We're also going to have a draw cross sections function as well, which I think would be quite nice to have as a teacher tool. And of course, the alphanumeric grid was on for a while. We then took it off because it's quite a complicated algorithm. So that it was fine if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, but we wanted our grids to actually go down from A to Z, from the top, from the north all the way down south. So we've removed it until it's correct. And as soon as it is, we will share that with everyone. So that's going to be in the next launch, but we need to just get the purses, fill them up a bit.
Bridget, can I just ask them quickly? I did it for our trials paper and it had alphanumeric grid there and it was fine because if you want the pupils to locate something, they can. You just tell them go to, you know, A5 or whatever, and they found the stuff. So I don't know what the problem is because I found it actually fun.
No, thanks, Wayne. We're going to leave it there. It's just that it was the wrong way. It went from A to the B up, and the purist, we didn't like that. We wanted it as our atlas. So Wayne, we like. It
still worked.
Yeah, no, I know that, but we like our alphanumeric grid. The purists here, like us old tunnies, Wayne, we wanted it the right way, like all the atlases show that the alphanumeric grid increases as you go down. Thanks, Wayne. Is there anybody else?
Bridget, can I just comment very briefly with regard to magnetic declination? In the meantime, while it's not a functionality on the map and you want to use it, I just want to share my screen with you. And you will see there's a website and we can make this website available. You can see it now. It's the National Center for Environmental Information. There it's got the magnetic declination estimate value. So you can put in all the data in that you wanted to. So you could put it in north-south, your lat and lon, and you could choose different ones. Generally, you could use the world magnetic model, and you could set the date, and that will then give you the magnetic declination. And then you could just cut that. It will give it to you either as an HTML. Can you see here? You get different formats. You can get it as HTML, you can get it as XML, CSV, and then you just copy that data and then, you know, create a text box on your map and then just add that information there. And then that will be correct because this is accurate information from the, and in fact, this is where the magnetic declination, when we put the functionality in, this is where it's going to get its information from. And so then you could use that.
Brandon, would you mind sharing your screen of the first example you gave of Christella's, the one of Pretoria and Johannesburg? And I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can, you know, for a particular school, if we could do the sphere of influence of our particular school by, say, putting them at you're taking a matric class, say, and putting all the addresses in of the students in the class and producing a sphere of influence of a particular school, for example.
Yes, that's a beautiful exercise. You know, now what you would do then, and that's what we will teach you in the course, on how to take that data, put it into a spreadsheet, and then put that spreadsheet onto the map. So all those functionalities are possible. All of that is the, and that's how you will generate data. And that's what we will teach you in the course, how you can create your own data. Because I mean, if you wanted to draw in the sphere of influence, that will be a fantastic exercise. So
Yeah,
the kids will log it in, they'll put their lat-lon in, and then they can put their address in, and then that will all then become a layer that you can pull into QGIS, and you can plot it on the map, and that's what we've done. I've done what some of my boys who did the ORTs. They did a study of looking at the influence of shopping centers on the price, housing prices. And they then drew buffers of 500 meters away and 1,000 meters away. And then they plotted a home sale. Then they did what is the sale of houses in that. And then they've just plotted those. And so it's a wonderful exercise. And so if you come to the course, we'll actually teach you how to do all of that really wonderful stuff. And then your learners will be able to do magnificent work.
Jocelyn, just to interject, but if you go on the SAGTA website and you click on GIS lessons, during COVID, when we had that 5-kilometer buffer, we gave our classes an exercise to do remotely, and we've shared all of that and how you can use OpenStreetMap data to actually get your own data. So if you just follow those video feeds, it's also on the GISA website and the SAGTA website. I mean, that's shared under Creative Commons. If you just do that, you can, you'll get the know-how. And we're also going to be doing these courses remotely as well, for those of you that are far away and over a few evenings. I'm just conscious of time. Inika said, please, can you, the membership form link is in the chat. And if you could please click on the feedback form, and remember, those people on the feedback form, there is going to be a free course offering, and your feedback is honestly anything that you would like to add, any more functionality. We hear you. Please, can you contact help@SAGTA. Inika and Amanda is at the secretary at SAGTA. We take all of that feedback and process it and try and implement all of that. So please, your feedback is very, very valuable. The time is now exactly 5 o'clock, and we've got a new record for SAGTA webinars, 84. So wonderful, and thank you, everyone. And for those that said goodbye to matrics today, I'm sure you're very emotional, so you need to go and start your sundowners right now. But admire Brandon, thank you so much from the community of geographers, and thank you, SAGTA. And if there's nothing else, we're going to sign off on time, because there's nothing worse than meetings that go beyond the prescribed time. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.